On this episode of the Bronze Metalist podcast, we talk about TEKKNO by Callboy. Hi, everyone. Welcome to another episode of the Bronze Metalist podcast. I'm Kale.
I'm OJ.
We're two professional broadcasters. We like metal, and we like to talk about it. And today, we're going to be talking about an album that came out last year by a German Electronicore band called TEKKNO. The album was called TEKKNO. The band is called Callboy.
They used to be called Eskimo Callboy.
And I feel like for relatively obvious reasons, they decided to change their name. Although fairly recently, I will give them a pass because they are German. And I think sometimes in Europe, especially in countries where they don't, necessarily grow up speaking English or have like a deep understanding of like American political correctness, there are some terms that are maybe on like a slightly lower grade of offensiveness that they maybe don't understand
because they're unaware.
Or just they don't have the context for like why it's not okay. So I'll give them a bit of a pass on that. But they changed their name to Callboy last year in the run up to the release of this album. I think probably because, as far as I'm aware, like these guys, I had never heard of these guys before their name change. Sure. I never heard of them as Eskimo Callboy. But then around the time that this album came out, I did start seeing like them pop up in like my YouTube recommended, like I was vaguely aware of this band, and I knew that like a number of their songs had like viral music videos. And I wonder if, because they had released a couple of singles from this album before they changed their name. So I wonder if that like new level of international success maybe brought a higher level of scrutiny, and they went like, oh, this is not okay anymore. We need to change our name. Or maybe it was something else. I don't know.
I feel like you're probably on the right path there with that.
But in any case, we'll talk more about TEKKNO by Callboy.
And you know why? Because yesterday we drank too much. Let's do it again.
Yes. We'll talk more about Callboy later on. First, how are you?
I'm doing fantastic. Thank you very much.
That's good. Yeah. We are, I kind of hate October. I hate this October specifically.
It's terrible
because like it's got nothing to do with Halloween. I love Halloween. Halloween is a fantastic holiday. It's great. It's wonderful. I love the vibe.
It's fun.
Any excuse for people to dress up in silly costumes, I think that's great. I hate October in North Dakota because I feel like so many years nature pulls such a fucking massive bait and switch where you get most of the way through October with shockingly summer-like conditions and temperatures.
It's nice.
Like, it was very nice up until 2 days ago. And then Mother Nature went, fuck you, it's winter now. We currently are still in the midst of a winter storm warning.
We're going to get 5 more inches apparently tonight.
Yeah, 5 more inches because there's already about 5 or 6 inches
of
on
snow.
The ground.
And here's the fun part. It was heavy and wet. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It was heavy, wet snow, and then it melted a little bit because the sun was out for a bit. And now what it is a big, thick layer of ice.
Yep.
That's all it is.
Big old layer of just pure ice.
I got home from work today, and I don't know if you've never been to my house, have you?
No.
You've never, all this time you've never been to my apartment. Nope. But my driveway is up this dirt hill. And it's awkward. It's at the bottom of a steep hill, and I have to make a left into the driveway, and it's steep.
Yeah.
And it's full of snow and ice.
Yeah.
And in order to get up there, I got to be going a good 25 miles an hour to get up this thing if there's ice or snow or whatnot, because I got to get that momentum. And today I got home and my neighbor was out smoking a cigarette in her car with the door open. Then that parking spot is directly next to mine. And so I was now stopped in the middle of the street. I can't park in my parking spot.
If I start moving, there's no slowing down.
Right. And then I'm just going to tear the door off her car is what ended up happening. But what ended up happening was I got stuck in the middle of the street and then I hit the gas pedal and nothing happened because I'm on glare ice. I'm like, it took me 20 minutes. I got home and 20 minutes later, my car was parked.
Oh, my God.
Yeah.
That also is smoking a cigarette with your car's door open really that much better than smoking a cigarette with the window down? Is there really that much of a difference? Why do you have to have the whole fucking door open?
I don't know.
And thus put a piece of your car into someone else's parking spot?
I don't know.
Just roll the fucking window down. Blow the smoke out the window. I feel like that's a fairly simple equation, and I don't think it's going to make your car smell any less like cigarette smoke. Like I don't understand why have the door all the way open. Also, it'll be even colder than it would be. Like,
sure, she could have just been outside the car.
Exactly. You could just not be in the car at all at that point. That just the whole thing just that makes me angry. It's been an angry day for me.
It's been an angry day for me as well. I mean, I don't remember what. Oh, the computer thing this morning.
God,
that sucked ass in the bad way.
So for context, I live very close to our place of work.
Right. Which makes me happy because if shit goes down, it's like, oh, okay, I'll take care of it.
Yeah, that's the curse of living here. But like the upside is that I get to walk to work every day.
Right.
And even in the worst possible weather conditions, I don't have to fucking worry about it because I can just put on snow boots and walk to work.
It's a block.
And it's fine. It's absolutely fine. I've saved a ton of money on gas.
Right.
And I don't have to worry about driving in fucking awful conditions like this.
Right.
It's pretty good. But that also means that like if there's a problem, then I need to go take care of it. So, and it also means that because I don't need to drive across town and because I also don't tend to eat breakfast, I wake up a half an hour before the workday starts. You know, I take a shower, I get dressed, and that's it. Like that's my morning routine. So exactly coinciding with my alarm at 8 o'clock this morning, exactly coinciding with my alarm is a call from our one of our coworkers, telling me that something is wrong and asking if I could go and take care of it. And I'm like, I literally just woke up, but I'll get dressed and I'll head up there. And so for the first 3.5 hours at work, I had not showered and just felt real gross. Right. And showered over my lunch break. But it's just like there was that problem, and I still don't know what caused that problem, which is frustrating. Right. I mean, we performed an update on the computer, so hopefully nothing else will go wrong. But I know that there is something wrong with that computer with its graphics card. And I don't know what that is or how to fix it.
It's cheap and old.
Yeah. And I talked to our boss, and he ruminated on having someone come in to take a look at it because there's clearly something wrong with the graphics card. But it's apparently not wrong enough to like impede the general moment to moment operations of the computer, because it still has graphics. It still displays visual elements and seems to be working normally.
That seems to be helpful.
I don't know if the problem that occurred last night that caused us to go off the air was the same as as this weird graphics driver issue. I don't know if they were the same thing. Also, I don't know if that's what caused that monitor to go kaput. Like I don't know what that is, but that's also the second or third monitor of that make and model that we've had in that studio that has completely fucking busted for some, like it's just a shitty type of HP monitor. I don't know if this new one we got will be much different, and I know it's a different model. So, but yeah, there was just a bunch of technical problems at work first thing in the morning.
Right.
And since I'm the morning guy, it all, you know, is like, oh, I got to deal with this right away.
Right.
So yeah, that put me in a bad mood to start things off. And
all the snow everywhere.
Yeah, all that too.
Doesn't help.
It's not the worst thing in the world.
Well, here's the thing for me is that when it was like, oh, it's going to be like another Snowmageddon kind of thing, I'm like, oh, it'd be so nice not to wake up tomorrow. I'll get up, I'll do the news. I can do my show from the bedroom. It's fine. I don't have to go into work. And then I saw that it's possible to
It's
drive.
not that bad.
Fuck, come on.
When it's shitty but not disastrous.
Yeah, I want it to be disastrous so I can...
You want a snow day.
I want a snow day.
That's what you want.
And I'll still work. I'll do all the work you want me to do from my room.
Yeah.
In my robe with a coffee.
I feel that. Yeah. Honestly, I think part of it, I think for me is the proximity. And then the other part of it is just because I spend so much time in this room anyway, doing things that I like.
Right.
That part of when we were working from home during the pandemic, part of it that I grew to resent was the fact that it felt like it was sort of violating the sanctity of this space.
Right. This is a recreational space. Damn it.
For use as you know, recreational uses.
See, my bedroom's not a recreational space.
Yeah.
So I don't mind working from there. And then I go out in my living room. That's where my TV and PlayStation
are. So yeah, it just when you know, and like I said before, I can walk to work. So even when it is absolutely disastrous outside, I can still go up to the station. I'll be the only person there.
Sweep out the dish.
But yeah, I'll probably head up there again tonight and do that. I did that last night. There was actually quite a bit on it last night. I was a little surprised because the wind was blowing favorably for most of the day. It seems like wintertime winds in North Dakota generally come from the north. And so because of the way that our satellite dish at work faces, snow does not tend to collect on it.
Right. Because it's facing south.
But there was quite a lot of, I think early in the day yesterday, the wind was kind of blowing the other direction. There's a lot of snow on it, but I'll head up there again tonight and see. Like it feels like for a really long stretch there, you know, over the last couple of years, we've had some massive snowstorms. And then every time I have gone up to check on the dish, it has been fucking spotless. And I'm like, why did I put my boots on? Wasting my goddamn time. It's 11:30 p.m. I want to go to bed. But yeah, I mean, it's nothing like a brisk nighttime winter walk.
Right.
To put you to bed.
Drain all the energy out of you.
Frankly, that is something like when I was in college, I would do that during the winter time. I would just it would just be like late at night and I would just throw on like my winter clothes and go for a walk around campus because it's, you know, it's well lit.
Sure.
And all the snow, everything would look nice and the lights. It was pretty. And I would just go for a walk.
You know what's fun to do again?
Look like a real creep.
If you're walking around the college campus at night, it's best to look like you're a more safe person, less creepy. What you do is you wear all black, a ski mask, and you bring your bolt cutters along.
Yeah, that will really...
that way you look more presentable.
Well, because people will think that, I mean, I'm wearing a ski mask, obviously, because it's cold.
It's cold,
I'm keeping my face warm, and they'll see the bolt cutters, and they think that I'm on the maintenance staff.
Sure.
And everyone's, oh, he's just one of the maintenance people.
You're
I feel
at 1 a.m.?
Yeah, I feel safe and secure.
Exactly.
Another thing that I would do on occasion is I would, back when I used to do, you know, some more like singing and metal vocals before I kind of hurt my voice a little bit. is I would get in my car and I would go park at the Dome and just like do that, just like, you know, scream in my car so as not to disturb people. And sometimes it would be pretty late at night. And one time I was just parked by myself in the massive empty Dome parking lot, and campus security came up and were like, "Hey, buddy, what you doing?" I was like, "Oh, I'm just listening to some music," and just, you know, I was just embarrassed. And they're like, "Do you have a campus ID?" And I showed it to them. They're like, "All right, have a good one. Have a good one." But they just wanted to make sure I wasn't doing a drug deal or something.
Right. You know, sometimes I go park and scream in my car as well.
Yeah.
But it's not, it's nothing to do with music.
It's just to blow off steam.
Yeah. It's like I broke down on the way to work this morning.
That happens.
My car was fine, but I mean...
You broke down.
I broke down on the way to work.
That happens.
Yeah.
Look, working is hard.
What we do work?
Yeah, I think so.
Okay.
Here's the thing. I think we are like, our job is not that hard, but also most people can't do our job.
Right.
And when you're doing a job and you are relatively decent at it and competent at it, it's going to seem probably kind of easy. Mm-hmm. I think that's just generally true. Unless you have a job that no matter how good you are at it, it's always going to be difficult. Like there are jobs like that are, you know, physically strenuous or stressful or dangerous. Like that's always going to be a hard job no matter how good you are at it. Mm-hmm. But that's not most jobs.
Right.
If you have a basic level of competence at the job you have, you're probably going to find it relatively easy. And that's not to say you won't find it annoying, but the actual day-to-day activities of it aren't going to be that hard. Mm-hmm. And I think that can be useful to keep in mind as just like you know what, I'm annoyed with this, but this job isn't that hard. Mm-hmm. Does that mean that I'm going to keep that in mind when I'm having a shitty day like today? Right. No, I'm not. But if I did, it might make my life easier. Mm-hmm. Boy, we're making some real progress. We're having big thoughts tonight. Big important thoughts tonight as we talk about Electric Callboy. I think I've come up with a better term than Electronicore. For Electric Callboy. I would like to call it Himbocore.
Himbocore? Sure.
So Electric Callboy is a German Electronicore band. Himbocore is as it shall henceforth be referred to by all parties. Probably not. So if you don't know, Electronicore is a fusion of various different electronic music genres with metalcore. Mm-hmm. So you have, you know, heavy usage of synths. You've got elements of EDM, trance music, trap, other electronic music types. What's the one that Skrillex was famous for?
Talking about dubstep. Right.
Yeah. And this is a style that sort of has its genesis in the very late 90s with, I believe, a generally credited a British band called, I think, Enter Shikari is credited with being like one of the first Electronicore bands. And then in the mid to late 2000s, the noughties, as the British sometimes call them.
Yes.
You have bands like Attack, Asking Alexandria, and so forth that sort of brought in this very like emo sort of sensibility, mostly in just the visual look of like the band members. Right. The band that I am like unfortunately most familiar with in Electronicore, and the one that colored my experience, in my opinion, of Electronicore is a band called Blood on the Dance Floor, which I was mostly aware of as a thing that some people liked and pretty much everybody else universally reviled. Like Electronicore bands or bands that, you know, were seen as being very linked to Electronicore, even though they were maybe more straight up metalcore.
Right.
They were never really my thing.
Mm-hmm.
They just they didn't appeal to me. I think part of it was just like it just seemed so. I don't know. There was something about it that I wouldn't have described it as such at the time because it was not a part of my lexicon when I was, in my late teens or whatever. But I would describe it now as cringy.
Yeah, sure.
Like a lot of the stuff just struck me as being very cringy, and I didn't care for it.
I feel like a lot of part of that is the fact that these guys were mixing techno music with metalcore and taking it very seriously.
Yeah, they were taking it weirdly seriously.
Yeah.
And they were not an Electronicore band, but there's another band that was called Attila that could be described as like partycore. Mm-hmm. Some of their earlier stuff was a lot more fun, and then they like went really. They started like. It felt like they started taking themselves more seriously, and they it turned from like party centric music into more like it started to feel more sort of hip hoppy in the sense that like, oh, this is no longer accessible parties type music. This is like, oh, this is a trust fund kids party music.
Sure.
Like it started to feel that way. As much distaste as I may have had for Attila, particularly starting with the album About That Life. Like, all right, guys, you're a bunch of white kids from the rich part of Atlanta. Like you're not about that life. But anyway, starting with that album on, and they like were massively popular with like the Warped Tour crowd, and a very good friend of mine was a huge fan of theirs. As much as I had a distaste for them, Jesus Christ, those were some really intense shows at Warped Tour. Like,
sure,
guaranteed to be the biggest wall of death, the biggest circle pit at the show. Every year they were there. People went nuts for them, and they put on a good show. I have to give to grant them that, but I still didn't like them. And I hadn't thought about Electronicore in an extremely long time.
You're welcome.
And then you were like, hey, here's Electric Callboy. And you're like, you're probably going to hate this.
Yeah.
And a good friend of ours who listens to the show texted you and was like, Kale is going to hate this. Yeah. But after you said we were going to listen to this week, and after we stopped recording, you're like, hey, look up We Got
the Moves.
Yeah, look up We Got the Moves. And
the video.
It is physically impossible for me not to smile. And I think my experience of that music video, which is, what the fuck? Why do I like this? Why is this so good? Why is this so much fun and so enjoyable? That basic experience was repeated over and over and over and over again through this entire album.
Yeah.
This album is in many ways pretty undiluted fun all the way through.
Opening note to the very end.
These guys, I think they have come all the way back around of like something can be so cringy that it comes back around to being cool and fun. Like they don't take themselves so seriously.
Right. I mean, there's serious moments on this.
Yeah. I think it's like, and again, it's like coming full circle. I think they are so irreverent, and they don't take themselves so seriously, and it's so sort of like satirical and tongue in cheek that it comes back around to being genuine.
Right.
Like it's that weird, there's a weird sort of, dissonance there of like, and it happens to me a lot where like bands that know what they are and either don't take themselves seriously because they know what they are, or do take themselves seriously.
Right.
As long as they are self-aware, I will always appreciate that. And these guys seem deeply, deeply, deeply self-aware that like, hey, this music's just fun and kind of weird, and we're gonna have this massive breakdown and some really intense scream vocals, and then we're gonna bring in these really immensely catchy synths and like
yeah, they have 2 lead vocalists.
Yes. One of whom this is his first album. The other is a founding member of the band, newest member of the band. His name is Nico. And his voice, I would best describe. He reminds me a lot of Chester Bennington.
Sure.
To the degree is, and like I can't get it out of my head, is actually before like I properly sat down to listen to the whole album because I watched that video on YouTube.
You got to see their other videos, by the way.
I did watch another one today. Not a single from this album, but they very recently released a cover of Every Time We Touch.
You watched that?
And I watched that.
Great.
And that was really good. And also, well, I was like, wow, this filming location is amazing. And then I was just like, oh, yeah, they're from Germany. You can just film a music video in a castle there.
Right. There are just castles everywhere.
There's castles all over the fucking place in Germany. Like, there's so many castles. But I didn't realize, is that Cascadia, the original artist for that? She's German. I didn't know that.
Yeah.
Is it
I believe
think it's Cascadia or Cascada or something like that.
But there was a time in the 90s where you couldn't avoid that song.
Yeah. I mean, there was a time still in the early 2000s where you couldn't avoid that song. I heard that song many, many, many times throughout my childhood. It's still got radio airplay in North Dakota.
Sure.
Maybe because we were a bit behind the times, or it was just still that popular. I don't know.
Or maybe that's what it's from, is the early 2000s.
It came out in the late 90s.
It was the late 90s?
Yeah. The song came out in the late 90s, but I think it had some staying power.
Right.
For sure.
It was huge.
But they released a cover of that. That was really good. And the music video is pretty hilarious. The video for We Got the Moves is so fucking bizarre. It's extremely funny, but also so fucking weird.
And then it's weird to when you watch another one of their videos and you go, oh, they don't actually have bowl cuts.
They don't have those haircuts.
That was just a gimmick for the video.
Like, yeah, they're. But anyway, I because I watched that music video for We Got the Moves, I did see a clip pop up of Nico briefly singing a little bit of Crawling in My Skin. And it was really good. And to the degree I was like, they should just do a straight cover of a Linkin Park song sometime. I think it would be really good. But this album, you know, I started listening to every song, every opening. Like, you hear the opening note, and I'm just like, what's this gonna be?
What are they doing?
What are they doing now? Yeah. What weird, like, how is this one going to make me smile despite myself? Like, I don't think of myself as a particularly cynical person, but you know, we've discussed many times that my taste in music tends to be relatively morose and serious.
Sure, there's a goblin you have to feed.
There's a goblin in my brain that just wants sad, depressing music of various different genres. Marcus, we call him.
Marcus.
But even so, a heart as cold and cynical as mine when it comes to my musical tastes still cannot help but be deeply entertained by an album such as this. How the fuck did you get into this album to want to bring it to the podcast?
Okay, I am new to this band. I'm pretty new. I hadn't heard about it.
I had figured.
A friend of mine, Uncle Scorpion down in Bismarck.
Okay.
He sent me a text message like a couple of months ago with the video for We Got the Moves saying, please tell me at some point you're going to bring this to the podcast. and I watched it. I'm like, oh my God, this is great. That I watched over and over. I'm like, this is so catchy. And then I listened to the rest of it. I'm like, yeah. Eventually, I imagine I don't really know how Kale's going to land on this. Really, is kind of how I felt.
I feel like I've kind of been 50-50 when you have an album that you're like, Kale's going to hate this.
Yeah.
Either you're right and I do hate it, or I cannot help but love it a little bit. I don't know if I would say that I love this album, but I had a very good time.
Right.
There was, I don't know if there was really a moment that I would say that I didn't enjoy. I think I'm not super fond of the song Spaceman.
Okay.
The
Viva la Elton John.
Yeah. The sort of the German rap parts.
Right.
Which I assume
What's the guy's name? Finch?
Finch, yeah. Something about that, like not that it was bad, but I was something about that just makes me want to skip that song more than the other ones. But all the rest of the songs, I had a very good time. The song Hurricane.
Oh my God. It's 1:42. You get halfway through and it's just really cool, dancey, poppy kind of hello.
It's a specific style of like German house music. I can't remember what it's called, but and then suddenly it's a extremely heavy, gurgly, like slamming deathcore song out of nowhere.
But they don't change the theme. It's still a love song.
Yeah.
I mean, it ends with, asking, marry me is what
like. And throughout their history, they have generally like maintained this same level of sort of irreverence of not taking themselves too seriously, of being a bit laid back, and not like, not having fun with it, and I think avoiding some of the pitfalls of the other electronicore bands, the ones that I found cringy when I was in my late teens and into my early 20s.
Right.
It is weird now that I can say my early 20s.
Right.
I don't like that. Actually, I don't like that I can now say my early 20s because I am definitively out of them at this point. I have been for a while, but still.
In a handful of months, you know what? Okay, you can stop that shit right now because
you're going to to be 50.
I'm going to be in my early 50s.
Yeah,
very shortly.
I don't have much of a leg to stand on there. I acknowledge that, but it does still feel weird.
Sure.
I think they avoid some of the pitfalls that some of those other bands at least had for me when it comes to being able to enjoy them. Does this album slap? That's a stupid question.
Of course it does.
This album really does slap in so many ways. Like, I think it's sometimes an element to me of whether or not an album slaps is kind of how catchy it is. Like there are some very heavy metal bands that still have a lot of hooks in their structure. They still manage to make things kind of catchy. There are some bands that really don't do that. Right. That I'd still say they slap. But this, oh boy, is it catchy. I can't get We Got the Moves out of my head. We Got the Moves has been going through my head all afternoon. I cannot get the main synth riff out of my head.
So your next question means the answer is obvious.
For what your favorite song is We Got the Moves your favorite song?
It is We Got the Moves, or it just actually might be Hurricane. I mean, because
Hurricane is so fucking weird.
So fucking weird. Or Parasite is actually
Parasite
song.
is really good. Parasite is one of the ones where when I was listening to it, I was like, oh, that sounds really Chester Bennington-y.
Yeah. And it's very serious. And,
yes. Yeah. I would say We Got the Moves for it probably has to be my favorite just because it's stuck in my head. I, again, despite myself, I'm really fond of the song Fuckboy.
It's kind of a sweet song.
It's like, it's one of those things where like lyrics alone, you're like, this shouldn't feel as like sweet and heartfelt as it does. Like it tries to be a bit trashy, right? Sort of on purpose, but it also still feels sweet,
right? It really walks that line very well.
Featuring the singer of an American metalcore band called Conquer Divide, who has a real Hayley Williams thing going on with her voice. She sounds a lot like Hayley Williams from Paramore, and along with a few other sort of female vocalists of that caliber. But I think an extremely sort of Southern California accent comes through in her singing.
Right.
That's sort of that. Even if it's like that fake SoCal accent that like so many like pop punk bands had.
Right. You know, even if you're from like Michigan, you still if you're of that genre, you
have that affectation because it's just where the music came from originally.
Right.
SoCal, was just, or pop punk was kind of born in Southern California. But I really like the song Fuck Boy. I definitely agree with you on Parasite. Techno Train? Come on.
That's great.
Techno Train. I also really liked Neon as well. Like it kind of comes down to almost like most of the songs. Like I really liked most of the songs. We Got the Moves is the one that has been stuck in my head though.
And have you seen the video for Pump It?
I have not seen the video for Pump It. I should. Pump It was submitted for Eurovision. They didn't make it.
Is it really?
But Pump It was submitted for Eurovision. They did not end up being Germany's selection for Eurovision, but that would be hilarious if it was, because it fits.
Right.
Like it's their whole style is very Eurovision-y. If I get, maybe with the exclusion of quite so much of the screamed vocals, that might be a bit intense for the Eurovision crowd. But the rest of it seems kind of Eurovision-y, at least to my knowledge of what Eurovision tends to be. Like it feels like bands that participate in Eurovision are kind of in their own genre in a way.
Eurovision bands,
yeah, like they might technically have different musical styles and genres, but they all feel somehow similar.
Right, they all feel like they come out of the same set, the same box,
Yeah, it's kind of bizarre. But I had a pretty damn good time with this album. What medal would you bestow upon TEKKNO by Electric Callboy? Like Maz Kanata to Chewbacca.
In that it scratches an itch that no other band can scratch, I have to give it a gold.
I wrote down silver.
Yeah.
But I feel like you make a very good point in that were I to judge it entirely on its own merits and not compare it to what I usually like to listen to. And the fact that I enjoyed this, and I will know in the future that if I am in the mood for something like this, I know exactly where to go.
Right.
And I will very happily and willingly go back to this album to scratch that itch. I think I have to give it a gold as well. I think I have to give it a gold. So yeah, unexpectedly for me,
it's a gold.
It's a gold. TEKKNO by Electric Callboy. I'm interested to see where the band sort of goes from here. It seems like they have had a bit of a rebirth with the new vocalist and sort of international success. It seems like they've kind of hit a new wave, a new level of popularity.
Yeah. They played in Minneapolis recently.
I read some reviews where this album was kind of described as like a sort of return to form for them, or like it feels re-energized. They went back, like apparently middle period of some albums. Some of the heavier riffs were missing. This album certainly does not lack for heavy riffs on it, and big chunky breakdowns. I'm interested to see where it almost reminds me a little bit like the revitalization they seem to have gone through reminds me a little bit of like Lorna Shore almost. Okay. In like the virality of it, like how viral certain Lorna Shore stuff started to go when I can't remember his name all of a sudden. The current vocalist for Lorna Shore.
Right, the guy who had his throat scoped on YouTube. Had a couple of really big sort of viral moments, and leading up to
a big release. We didn't talk about score. I didn't look. I didn't really look for scores for this too deeply. What was on Wikipedia? Kerrang gave it a 2 out of 5, which I feel like is a little harsh and cruel. A lot of
Will Ramos,
Will Ramos, thank you, vocalist for Lorna Shore.
Yeah,
a lot of the other reviews that were on there weren't a ton, but the other reviews that were like listed on the album page were more positive. None of them seemed like glowing necessarily, but. I feel like this is the sort of thing where, like, if you are like a serious music reviewer, you go like, this is really fun, but I'm not giving it a 5 out of 5.
Right.
That's for like Dark Side of the Moon.
Sure.
It's not for TEKKNO by Electric Callboy. A 4 out of 5 or a 3.5 out of 5 will do.
Right.
But for us, if we tend to rate just off of pure enjoyment, how much we liked something subjectively, I think gold is only appropriate from the both of us. As is often my tradition, I did not think about what I wanted to listen to next week. I did think a little bit about, and I may as well commit to it. I don't believe that the two of us have talked about the album The Great Collapse by Fit for an Autopsy. I don't believe we have talked about that Fit for an Autopsy album. We've talked about Sea of Tragic Beasts. We've talked about the most recent one. Right. The name I can't remember.
With the red cover.
It's not red.
Isn't it red?
It's like there's like a naked woman and a baby, and it's like a sort of oil painting. What is that one called? I can't remember what that one is called. What the Future Holds is what that album is called. We talked about that when it came out, but this was the album that they put out in 2016, I believe, or 2017.
Okay.
And it's their second album with Joe Badolato. It's one that I like, but I have not gone back to much over the years. Has a couple of really heavy songs on it that I enjoy. And been putting a couple of them in like a playlist that I'm making, and it was like, oh, hey, we haven't talked about that one. We may as well. So unless I discover something that I'm like, oh, we got to talk about that instead, we'll talk about The Great Collapse by Fit for an Autopsy next week. So until then, why don't you go ahead and follow us on Facebook or the website formerly known as Twitter.
Are we on there still?
Yeah, I mean, I don't believe they've started the thing where you have to pay for it yet.
Okay.
I don't know if that's going to happen or if they backtrack that. Obviously, when it does happen, we won't be doing that, right? Because that's bullshit.
But they are still gonna start doing voice calls and FaceTime calls, video calls.
That's not what the website is for.
No.
But anyway, go ahead and follow us there if you want. Otherwise, just subscribe to our feed on whatever podcast service you are using to listen to us right now. Do it. Do it. Do it. Do it.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
So thank you very much for listening to another episode of the Bronze Metalist Podcast. I'm Kale.
I'm OJ.
Congratulations.